Kansas City, it's known for barbecue, fountains, and of course, jazz. You get to, you know how to get around the first two, but have you dipped your toe in the thriving jazz scene we have in town? If not, we got an easy place for you to get started with Live Jazz KC. What was the inspiration behind Live Jazz KC?
Inspiration was really just built around the scene that we have and my desire to amplify it on a larger scale, to really connect in one spot, a place for musicians and clubs and listeners to have as a resource, and for people that are out of town, that are maybe traveling here, or people on maybe even a global scale that want to find out more about what's going on in Kansas City and promote what we're doing so well here, which has always been historically, you know, keeping the music alive in terms of jazz and letting everybody know about it.
What was your connection to the scene before you developed the website?
Born and raised in Kansas City, played saxophone since the 5th grade, always been a huge fan of the guys that I grew up listening to here in town, who are still, for the most part, still here playing.
Yeah.
And was able to get into playing, you know, frequently and making friends with musicians and building those relationships as a musician, as well as a fan.
When did you start coming out to clubs like this to see live music?
It was probably high school, in a real club setting. Down the plaza, they used to have the Fedora, the 210 Fedora.
Yeah.
On the corner there, always had a Saturday afternoon jam session. And I remember going down and like listening to musicians there and hearing the guys play and wondering how they did it. And you know, so that was the first experience I had listening to guys outside of, you know, records. It seems to me that there's certainly a deep history here with how the music evolved, and whether it came up from New Orleans or over from Chicago, who's to say what's the right answer necessarily, but I think it's a combination of all of those things, and what's made Kansas City so great, I think, in terms of long-term traction, it's just been, it's always been what it is.
Yeah.
And you know, there's always been a lot of pioneering here, and that doesn't not hold true anymore. You know, I mean, there's still guys here pushing the musical envelope, and there's a lot of people here that still really hold on to the rich history that we've always had.
And Live Jazz KC is also very active on social media, with their Facebook posting pictures, videos from the stage, and daily music calendars on where you can go see and hear live jazz. For instance, today at noon, you can go hear Latin jazz at the downtown public library, or if you're up late, catch the Mad Hopper Trio at the Green Lady Lounge at 11:30 tonight. Now, a bit later on the show, meet more of the musicians from the jazz scene here in Kansas City. All right, it's no secret that the jazz scene here in Kansas City attracts musicians from all over the country. Well, forget that. We have a worldwide attraction. So you are originally from Cameroon.
Yes, sir.
What brought you here to Kansas City to play bass?
Well, before even coming to the US, I was already a bass player, but I was playing electric bass. I always wanted to play jazz. I always wanted to learn jazz. But as I've heard before, when you want to do something and you want to do it very well, find somebody who has done it at least 10 years, you know, ahead of you, who has 10 years of experience at least. So when I moved to the US, I was living in Philadelphia, and I was about to start school there. My sister told me, hey, you want to study jazz? Kansas City is all about jazz. So I just packed up my stuff the day after that, and I moved up here. And a couple of months later, that's where I met Jim at KCC, and since then, the rest is history.
So you go to school at the junior college, you're playing bass for some of the ensembles there. How often do you get out to play jazz in some of the different clubs around town?
It's pretty much every day.
Yeah.
You know, even when I'm not practicing, I'm mentally practicing. I'm always focusing on developing my skills as a musician. So I do it mostly during the weekends, but also it happens that I'm busy as well during the weeks.
Is it something you want to stay here and do, or do you want to take this and then move on from it? What's your goals?
I'm so glad you asked this question, because I have this big project of mine. I've always learned that whenever you learn or have something best for you to share it with others. So that's also how you learn, so that's how you grow as well. So one of my biggest goals in life actually is to be able to create a program to Cameroon or even in Central Africa, or why not even Africa in general, to give the opportunity to young musicians to benefit to the knowledge that I've had, you know, in such a short period of time. Because I believe what I've been learning in about 3 years now, I couldn't have learned it in like 12 years back in Cameroon, even having the opportunity to have an upright. So I'm working on this project of mine. It's very, very, very young. It's gonna take a lot of time and also a lot of money, but I'm willing to sacrifice to do everything to make it happen.
How awesome is that? We want to wish Seiko the best of luck on his project and his journey. Now, Seiko is relatively new here in the Kansas City scene. Up next, we're going to chat with the guy who has tickled the ivories for over 40 years in clubs around Kansas City. A number of players in the KC jazz scene that have been here for several years.
And you met up with Charles Williams, a piano player who has been playing around town since the 1970s.
Yeah, he is one of the smoothest players you'll ever meet. I'm curious about your perspective from where Kansas City jazz was when you got on the scene and playing out to where we are today.
I started really getting into the Kansas City jazz stuff when I was in high school. So under Leon Brady, and really kind of prior to that, I was introduced to jazz legend Clark Terry when I was in the 8th grade. I got more into the jazz, and so the jazz in Kansas City, from what I remember from my age as a teenager, was just a lot going on. There were a lot of guys here playing, such as Claude Fiddler Williams, Sonny Kenner, Milt Abel, Betty and Milt Abel, which was a great jazz duo or trio. They used the bass players, but my band teacher was playing at the Levee every week, just like clockwork. I mean, it was just so much going on. I didn't play, and then I got off into really like a religious thing, and I just kind of stopped playing. I just played in my church. I was getting back on my feet, and I ran into artist Queen Bey.
Okay.
Queen Bey. And someone had introduced her to me, and she took me kind of like under her wing and just started giving me some jobs, and I got noticed, but still the scene was good. The music, not only in Kansas City, but just the music on the radio. You had more jazz playing on the radio. I see it today as there's just a lot of people moving to Kansas City from, I'll put it like that. A lot of people, the word is out that you can come to Kansas City and you can work.
Yeah.
And we have the Jazz Museum, which is a great place for people to come and visit.
And just hearing some of the players he listed off was awesome. And a cool note about Charles, we both graduated from the same building in high school. He went to Sumner High School, and I was a graduate of Sumner Academy. Another Sumner connection, Charles also plays with one of my high school classmates, DeAndre Manning. He's a bass player around town, and they play all over the place. And it was super cool just to sit down with him and just kind of connect a little bit, because we know a lot of the same people, but really cool to chat with him. He's just a treasure to have here in Kansas City, and if you get the chance to go see him play, go see him play.
Well, I'm going to be signing up for that, but I also love that he mentioned the Jazz Museum, because that truly is a gem here in Kansas City.
Yeah, definitely. So.